Jay Colwell, thank you for being here.
You're so welcome.
It's great to have you on. I think there's just so much good information that you have that's good for singers and non-singers alike about how to use our bodies, how to use our voices, and I'm really excited to talk to
Yeah,
you about that today. So, first of all, tell everyone where you're talking to us from.
sure. So I'm in Southern Orange County, Laguna Beach. Um,
So
yeah,
you're close to Long Beach. You're just right
I
down the
am
road.
close to Long Beach. Yeah,
Yeah.
just right down the road on a good day.
Right. Exactly.
Traffic is
Oh man,
crazy.
for sure. Um, could you just tell us a little bit about what the Singing Body Clinic is?
Sure. So the Singing Body Clinic, I think there's lots of ways that I can describe it, but just it's a sort of studio where I can give students a voice, just more insight about their body and their breath, sort of how these two things are related, how I guess the sensations that we feel physically affect sort of the whole system. And if we're thinking about like the whole body as a singer's instrument,
Yeah.
um, I think it's just really important to consider, what that is and how to work with it. Um,
Yeah.
it just to me, what I end up doing typically is just blending a lot of like corrective exercise and strength training and yoga and sort of somatic practices and sort of working with the nervous system. It's kind of just this big collective approach so that I can work with each sort of individual person on their needs as it applies.
Tell me what somatic practices are.
Somatic practices, so like Alexander technique,
Right.
Feldenkrais, Rolfing, yoga,
So it
just things
integrates
that,
all those techniques into sort of a
yeah,
holistic.
yeah.
That's what I love about it.
And I would think like somatic is more along the lines of like feeling based rather than doing based. And I
Got
think
it.
when we talk about singing, I think a lot of it is just considering how we feel in our body rather than trying to do more with
That is so important because
it.
I like honestly singers. I mean, speaking for myself, I think of doing more. Like, what do I need to do? What steps can I follow so that I can get this desired outcome, as opposed to like, how does it feel? And
Yeah, totally.
yeah,
And
that's
I think
amazing.
one of the good things about this sort of work is I just try to emphasize that it's independent of singing, in
Right.
that this like your voice is your voice, your technique is your technique. You do that with your teacher. We're just going to work on breathing and posture and trying to see if we can make any you know connections between the two.
Right.
That
And
that
then
way, like yeah, when you go to sing, you have to do less because your body is more aware of what it's doing.
you've created a space in your body so that your technique that you've been working on all these years can actually happen.
Like live
Yeah.
and sound out. Yeah, for sure.
Um, that's great. And you do all your work online. I mean, I've been
Yeah,
working with you for a year, and I've been in Louisiana, Wisconsin, Minnesota. I've only ever met you in person one time
totally.
in California, and that it's so convenient. It's just really awesome. So, yeah, okay. So, you're a trained singer besides being an
hmm
athletic trainer.
hmm
What drew you to opera?
Such a good question. I think lots of things drew me to opera. So my growing up, there was music in my family. Both of my dad's parents were music teachers. So it was always kind of around that zone. And I remember, so I grew up in Nebraska. And I think the first thing that drew me to opera was the first live production that I saw. And I think that's kind of everybody's
Sure.
general experience with it. I remember being in the room and just being in the same room as somebody making sound like that. I thought that was like super fascinating.
It's so powerful,
Um,
right?
it's so powerful and so moving, and there's just such a naturalness to it. I think an effortlessness, but there's so much going. It's just like out of this world cool to me, and that's what I saw. And so the first production I saw was at the University of Nebraska, where I eventually went and got my bachelor's. And I remember the specific production was Midsummer Night's Dream,
Oh my gosh.
directed by Bill Shomas, who's the director of opera there. And he just had such a cool approach to opera, I thought, in that he really like involved the body in the whole process, movement and posture and using the body to be another sort of vessel of expression.
Great.
Yeah,
Those first opera experiences are key for sure.
totally. And they just kind of follow you through life. It's really cool.
So, you work with singers. I mean, you work with singers and non-singers, but I mean, Singing Body Clinic is designed to work with opera singers. So what is, I'm asking this question to everyone, what is uniquely challenging or uniquely rewarding about working with singers?
Cool. I think they're both kind of the same thing. The challenge and the reward are both there, and relatively the same in that. I think the challenge, or at least with like the specific kind of work that I'm doing involved with the body, I think the challenge is helping singers to map what they're feeling and why. And I think when we talk about like technique, it's I don't want to say it's a delicate process, but it is. I think there's so much like subtle coordination happening, and all of that is tied into the body, right? How we breathe, how we stand, just it's all part of the process. So I think when the challenge being then how do I help somebody explore and experience their body differently without them worrying too much about it affecting their vocal technique or negatively affecting it.
Right.
You know, so it's a challenge in that sense to help somebody feel their body differently for a specific reason, for them specifically, and then to give them permission to do that and see how it feels. And then equally, then the reward is getting somebody to feel their body differently. And that's super rewarding on my end.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, our whole body is our instrument, and it's located inside. I mean, it's not like, not that playing an instrument is any easier or harder, but like you can see where you're putting your fingers, or where you're, totally, you know, I mean, totally. It's all inside, and it's all what you feel based on what you feel, and people feel stuff different ways. You know, I feel like I feel stuff backwards. Like most of the time when someone talks about how they sing, I'm like, oh, I think of that exactly the opposite way. No wonder.
Totally, yeah, and that's the thing too. It's like everybody and everybody has their own unique experience, right? Yeah. And with the voice being inside, unseeable, but so interconnected to everything head to toe.
Right.
Yeah, it's just everybody's approach is going to be different, and so in regards to like mapping it all out, people are going to map things differently. Everything is different for everybody. Wow. There's not really any right or wrong. There's just a better direction to go, and more non-ideal direction.
So, I mean, during this time that none of us are really performing, but like, what would you say? What lens would you want singers to be looking at their body through right now?
I think stress.
Right. I mean, it's there no matter what. Like when you're performing, there's this level of like that stress that kind of gets you going but like now we've got that plus like every single person on the planet has this extra layer of stress that's just like.
Yeah, totally. So like, there's another like portion of my work is working with physicians, and I do physician wellness, and a lot of it is like stress coaching.
Oh my gosh, what are they? I mean, they must be going through right now?
Yeah, it's a unique time for everybody. It's definitely challenging.
Thank you for doing that. That is
sure.
Really, that is key work.
Yeah, it's super rewarding in its own way too. But that work has informed me so much about working with opera singers in that stress is so present in the work, right? And when it's sort of this like need to perform as perfectly as you can, that's high stress.
Yeah.
And so during this time specifically, I think it's an opportunity for all of us to kind of get in touch with how stress affects us and be aware of sort of our habits to either coping with it or making it better. And just really paying attention to everything within your lifestyle. So it's not like we can pay attention to our bodies physically, we can work out, we can stretch, we can do all this stuff. But everything is so interconnected to everything else in regards to our health. So, you know, are your workouts stressing you out more, right? If you're already stressed and then you're working out in a way that's stressing your body out more, is that really what you want to be doing now? You know, is your diet something that you're doing or using to cope with stress or to help sort of mitigate and manage it? Are you staring at a screen all day? Are you not moving all day? all of the, and then
Yes.
those all affect sleep, all of that affects stress, all of that affects inflammation. And so I think the lens that people should be looking at their bodies through or their instruments through is just really taking this as an opportunity to put good lifestyle habits in place in regards to stress. So
Is there, I mean, so say we've done that, say like I've looked at my diet, I've tried to make some, I've tried to cut the screen time down, get good amounts of sleep, really try to, say you're doing all the things.
mm-hmm.
Is there something that you could recommend that can help mitigate the stress on top of looking at each thing? Is there a technique or something that maybe if we're just really feeling it that day, something we can do to just kind of like...
Totally. So physically, one of the things, well, you can use a lot of your body. you have control of a lot of these really cool parts of your body that actually induce a relaxation response. So breath being the most primary one. A breath practice, there's lots of different ways to think about it. But through the lens of stress, typically it's just if you can encourage yourself to take, for example, longer exhales than you would inhales, what that does is put your body into a state of rest over a certain period of time. So there's really simple things. It doesn't have to be this whole like overhaul.
Yeah.
But I would say that. And then the other part is just really having a discipline towards your mindset. When that little like hamster wheel starts going and it only keeps going faster and faster and faster as long as you let it, right?
Yeah.
And so recognizing that stress is something that's unavoidable is something that helps you get less carried away with it. And you have sort of the control within your mind to bring yourself to a place of, okay, I recognize this, that's stressing me out, that's there, but I'm going to hold myself to feeling non-stressed by doing X, Y, and Z.
That little sense of detachment, I find it's like really, it also takes that little judgy voice away a little bit. That's
Mm-hmm.
like, makes you feel bad about what, the stress that you're feeling. Like, well, you should have done this today and you didn't do that. Like, okay.
Totally.
I hear that, but I don't have to live by that little crummy voice,
Yeah, definitely. Our own self-talk can fuel stress more. So that's like I think the foundational thing is like, how are you talking to yourself? Is super important too.
So, how do you look at a singer's body? How do you work with a singer's body? Is it different than working with physicians? Is it the same?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Well, it's everything's different. So I think there are like two things. I look at it athletically. So I love athletic training. And so I consider all my singers as like vocal athletes. And in that, one, you can train a body to adapt a certain way, right? And so like if I am training a runner, for example, I'm not going to have them do a bunch of upper body exercises to get better at running, right? So the same way you can apply the same principle is that we do certain things when we sing and we use our body a certain way when we sing. And a lot of that comes down to like just healthy alignment, spinal alignment. How is your body stacked? How are your tissues balanced? So I do that with every athlete, but then with singers specifically, it's just then what is your relationship with breath like? And how does breath affect your body? And so generally I just take a look at sort of how somebody is moving, and that sort of informs me about kind of where to go, and everybody being different. But I think the lens that I look at a body most with singers, again, coming back to this sort of like feeling-based approach, is just neurological. Our body moves in reflexes. And so if our joints are moved by our muscles and our muscles are moved by our brain, if we're trying to move better, we should work with the brain, right? A lot of that is just, so I like to use a lot of like hatha yoga of just like holding postures, getting into the actual muscle tissues, bypassing reflexes to actually kind of restore balance to the body. And it's always adapting, always changing, and you can always adapt it and change it to whatever it is you want it to do, which is super empowering too. So I think I look at it through the lens of the nervous system.
Okay.
How like motor function works and sensation, somatic stuff.
That's interesting because I find that sometimes, a lot of times actually, like if I'm in a voice lesson or something like that, it's less about changing what I'm doing and a lot more about changing how I think about it. And the changing of the thinking will change the doing of it, right? I mean, is that kind of what you're talking about?
Yeah, totally. And when I work with singers, to your point, there are cells in our bodies that respond to thought. And these are cells that are within our muscle tissue. And so by simply being aware of a part of your body, it excites all those cells to turn on and listen to what you're trying to get them to do, if that makes sense.
Yeah, for sure.
So for example, like the approach that I like typically take is like what would be like a global, local, global, meaning that global, you kind of look at the whole body, what it's doing in a posture. And to talk about posture, posture is something that's dynamic. It's not held, it's not static. You're always moving in some way or another. You're always balancing yourself against gravity. So in a specific posture, how is this person balancing themselves?
Yeah.
See where things might be a little unbalanced, work into those spots with those tissues. A lot of it just really comes back to core strength. And then in working locally, then take it back out and see how the bigger picture has changed. And all of this is sort of like helping somebody follow the sensations in their body.
Yeah. So you and I have worked on posture. We've been working together for about a year or so. And we've done lots of stuff and it's all been awesome. But like the main reason why I first contacted you was because our mutual friend Jenny Hauser had written a testimonial about her work with you, and she mentioned specifically breath work and posture work. And I was like, well, I could use some help with those two things.
Totally, yeah.
And we've done a lot of posture work. And could you talk about how posture and breath are related?
For sure. So how I see posture, and they're really like relatively synonymous in my mind. So the first thing we do with our body when we're born is take a breath, right?
Yeah.
And from that, we sort of have this innate knowledge that breath is sort of the most primary thing about our lives.
Yeah.
So we always prioritize it or learn to prioritize it in response to how we move. So the first postural skill that we gain is lifting the weight of our head and breathing at the same time, and then latching on and taking in nutrients. And then eventually, like, we lay on the ground and we kick our legs and breathe, and we roll over and breathe, and we crawl and breathe, and everything, because the diaphragm is a super important muscle, not only for breath, but also for your alignment in your core.
Yeah.
So everything is kind of in response to breathing, right? How do I stay balanced with this change in pressure in my body? So in that way, you develop physically really alongside your relationship with breath. And then it only just, eventually all that stuff becomes super ingrained. You don't really remember learning how to walk, right? And the same way you don't really remember learning how to breathe. And that really comes back again to this sort of somatic idea in that you're really waking up parts of your body that are just generally absent from your mind, but you use them all the time. Yeah. So posture and breath to me are relatively the same thing. The better we stand, the better we breathe, the better we breathe, the better we stand. And then when it comes to like working with singers, is it the way somebody's breathing that's affecting how they're standing, or is how somebody's standing affecting how they're breathing? Oof. And just seeing which one to kind of go into most. And you just explore and see what you find.
That's amazing. I love that. It's just, there's just so much there. I mean, yeah, you could really go down the rabbit hole. And I do go down the rabbit hole with this stuff. Like, oh no, am I standing wrong? Am I breathing wrong?
No. And again, like, it's just all, as long as you're like feeling good in your body,
right,
you're typically doing it right. And then the challenge becomes just sustaining that, you know? So nothing is ever really broken. It's all fixable.
Listening to your body is key. Tuning into that, right? Okay. Controversial question. Is exercise bad for singing?
I love this question. Yes and no. So how do I say this? There was a study done in the Journal of Exercise Science in, I think it was 2019, so last year, that showed, or what it did was mapped reported injuries from exercising. Okay, so it took, I think it was like 51,000 injury, and I have it, hold on, let me find it. I had it pulled up just in case. Yeah, so 51,000 injuries per year, which rose alongside the growth of interest in like high intensity workouts, or basically the workouts that are marketed to us.
Right. Fad workouts, things like that.
And so, yeah, so like spin, like high intensity training, CrossFit. And it's not to say that any of that is bad,
right?
But for the general population of people, likely not that good if you're seeing this huge increase in injury, right?
Right.
And when you think about singing, that's probably not good exercise for singing.
Right.
So in that way,
that's gonna injure you, maybe not.
Yeah.
So good.
Reconsider. But that to say that if exercise can be used in a way that's beneficial for singing, but what we typically tend to conflate with exercise are the exercises marketed to us,
right.
or more so the workouts marketed to us. So when we allow exercise to be something that really supports physical health, that is driven more by a feeling rather than an aesthetic, because I think that's another important thing to take into consideration, is that a lot of us just in modern society, because of social media, because of marketing, because of whatever, we've sort of learned to conflate our physical health with how we look.
For sure. Plus we're like working on stage, you get pressure from like, well, you gotta, if you're gonna play this kind of part, you gotta look a certain way. And I mean, that's,
for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and the point that I just want to argue is that your physical health is not determined by how you look. Sure, like there are certain things that play into consideration, but again, if we're coming back to this idea of feeling good in your body, that's what physical health really is. And if you're working out in a way that stresses your body out more, or in a way that your body isn't prepared for, which is typically like this high intensity training, which would be like top of the pyramid, right? Like you kind of sprinkle this in as a supplement into everything else you're doing, rather than having it be your foundation. It's just such a, it will injure you. And so it's important to think that exercise is used as sort of a corrective and to help your body do what it naturally is good at.
This is great. I mean, what I love about our work together is that we've over time built a foundation of exercise that, because I was definitely of the mindset of like, I mean, once we started working on posture, my other goals that I suggested to you is like, I'd like to lose weight, I'd like to, gain strength, and I was kind of like, lift weights, I'm gonna get into HIIT training and stuff, and you're like, let's do some floor exercises, let's do some movement, some yoga, and we built this foundational thing from which we could then add resistance training. We added all kinds of different stuff to it. But we didn't start from the top of the pyramid and go down.
Totally.
So, I mean, you want to talk more about that, or like, what is that? I mean, what falls under the umbrella of exercise for you? Like,
sure. So, healthy exercise. There's lots of things that fall under exercise, but I think the approach that we take to exercise is super important. And the approach that a lot of us take, just because again, it's what we're marketed, it's what we've learned, it's how society works. Is that you just like no pain, no gain, you go, you like get it done. And that's just not what your body wants, especially if you're already in a state of stress. It's just going to compound a problem further. So exercise, to me, introducing it incrementally so that your body can adapt and adjust and learn what you're trying to teach it over time. Exercise is also a practice in patience.
Right. Oh my gosh. For sure it is.
Yeah. And a lot of us want that quick result, right? And that's what we're marketed. These exercise things are just like, we're going to get you there in 30 days and you're going to be as skinny as you've ever imagined, And it's just like, that's to what point does that serve, right? How does that support your health? And I'm sure it might in some ways, but for most people it shouldn't. So introducing exercise incrementally helps your body adapt and adjust and build a base. So it takes time. Two, I think really separating exercise into general exercise and informed exercise. Right. General exercise, that's when you can give yourself permission to just kind of do your workout, be absent-minded, just get some like endorphins going, whatever. And then the informed exercise is really where we have that base, right? Where you understand why you're doing the exercises you're doing, why your form matters for you, what you need to pay attention to, how this translates into your body, what you should be feeling, right? It's more personal and informed, and just that way you can translate those skills and those techniques into other forms of exercise.
Yeah.
And another form of exercise, if I can say it, might be singing. You know, it's using your body in a way that's athletic. You're holding your body in a state of tension, though I know tension is like a scary word, but it's really what you're doing, right?
Yeah.
When you take a breath, sure, it has a lot to do with pressure, but also you're sustaining that pressure with tension. You're keeping your ribs open, you're standing in your body, it is a form of exercise, I think.
Absolutely.
So,
wow. That's awesome. That's so great. Oh my gosh. Wow. I would just want to keep talking all day. So if there was one thing that you wished singers knew about their own bodies, what would that be?
It's super strong. It has, this might be weird to say, but kind of a knowledge of its own, right? We have within ourselves like millions of years of history that have supported and sustained us to where we are in the world now. And kind of coming back to this point, like the more you get out of the way, the less you try and do, and the more you try and support, the more able your body is to do what it's trying to do. And so I think, you know, through like a training lens, one of the things that singers should know about their body or prioritize or learn about their body is just the balance between when you are, you know, in performance mode or on a gig, is that a time that you really want to try to be gaining strength and getting ripped and doing all this stuff?
Right.
Likely not, because you're using your body, you're in rehearsals, you're practicing, whatever. So to learn how to recover and rest. And I think that's like the most important thing in regards to learning about your body for anybody. Because we are taught to be so on all the time, and everything that we have in the world coaxes us to be on all the time. And in this way, like we don't really ever get to access that sort of rest and digest state where our body really learns how to recover, really learns to build strength and get stronger, because rest is so important when it comes to your body. That I think the important thing to take into consideration is rest can improve performance. And allowing your body to rest, helping it find and uncover what rest is, because again, it's going to be on our biology, given again, all the distractions that we have in life, is just going to stress us out and keep us wired, right? So in this way, you have to teach your body how to turn off. So recovery is super important.
This is amazing. This is all such good stuff. I love it. I want to thank you for doing this. This is my second episode. I really don't know what I'm doing. I don't know how to interview people.
Love it.
So thank you. I just want to close this out. I've got this little stupid thing I'm doing called the Fauci 5. Just a quick top of your head kind of questionnaire that I'm ending each interview with. And I've sort of adapted it to be more exercise centric as opposed to opera centric. So do you have a favorite exercise or activity, or maybe an underrated one?
I love running. Always running.
Nice.
I do marathons. I like to be outside as much as I can, so I am always running when I can.
I do marathons too. There was a Star Wars marathon on TNT
nice.
Weeks ago. I got through the whole thing.
Good job. Well, lots of training, right?
Totally. Been training my whole life for that one. Do you have a favorite, maybe a favorite book about the body, or a favorite like resource that you could share with us?
Anatomy Trains by Tom Myers. It talks about and I think this is super interesting for singers, in that it shows how the body is all linked together through connective tissue, fascia. Nice. It's a good way to kind of, if you're looking for images, you don't really have, you should learn the anatomy, you could know the anatomy, it's super helpful too. But it shows you in images how certain muscles are linked together with other muscles, right? So I think that's super important. We think about the body being the whole instrument. Our brain doesn't think this muscle does this muscle does this. Our brain thinks these muscles do this in this sort of motion, right? It works in movement more than it does one muscle at a time. So helping, again, Anatomy Trains by Tom Myers can kind of just
link to that.
can show you the big picture about how all these muscles are really linked together.
Cool.
Yeah.
That sounds great. Any book that you've read recently that you'd like to share?
Yoga Biomechanics by Jules Mitchell. It's really cool. It talks about how to understand tension, how to understand the tissues of your body, and how to adapt them in a way that is productive.
Awesome. Gosh, yeah, I'll put links to these down.
Okay, cool.
Great. So what are you doing to stay sane right now, since we're all canceled? Or what are you doing to stay creative? I mean, you're working every single day. You're basically still doing your job as normal, but what are you doing to keep sane?
Totally. The thing I'm doing to keep sane is making myself rest. Like, I'm just trying to practice what I preach, because it really does make a difference. So I have like weird, I do a bunch of weird stuff, but mainly it's like I lay a bunch of sandbags on myself at the end of the day. I lay on my back and I just kind of like stay there and breathe for 10, 20 minutes. And it really does the trick. It's literally like I have to just like calm myself down. Because I tend to be like a very just busy person in my head anyways. So it's just a nice way to support my health, because I know it's a thing that I don't typically do in all the other stuff that I do throughout the day.
And my last one of the Fauci 5 here. What are you streaming right now on Netflix or whatever, or what podcast you're listening to?
Totally. The Office.
The Office.
Always. Nice. I could just watch it. I think I don't even know how many times I've watched it. But yeah, just started a season and just go through it.
My daughter is an Office completist. She started, and she'd never seen an episode live. She wasn't alive when it was on the air, and she went through the entire series.
I love it. During quarantine?
She's listening to, no, she started before, and now she's listening to the Office Ladies podcast.
What?
Where it's Pam and one of the other actresses do a podcast where they do an episode and talk about what it was like to do that episode.
Oh my gosh, I had no idea. Yeah. Great, I'm going to be streaming that.
Awesome. Thank you so much for doing this. I love you. You're the best. I love working with you, and thanks for doing this today.
Yeah, for sure. Thanks, Andy.
Yep.